We were doing a lesson yesterday, and the golfer was telling us how much effort he felt like he was having to expend just to keep his swing speed up from where it was a couple of years ago. There's a move that we showed him in the lesson that kind of made it, he said it felt effortless. Now, the swing is never effortless. You have to do something in the swing. He was doing things that made it feel like he was having to work extra hard in the downswing just to generate speed. We're going to show you today what those effortless, quote unquote, moves were, so you can start to incorporate those same things in your swing. If you haven't already done so, make sure to hit that subscribe button, click on that bell. Also click on that link in the first pinned comment below. We'll have more videos for you, more drills for you, absolutely free. Shaun, let's talk about his concept for how his pelvis moved. And you and I both were taught this. Get the pelvis moving early, and then let the upper body kind of go to end of range of motion, and then everything starts to downswing. And that definitely takes a lot of effort to do, because you're kind of going to a stop and then trying to ramp everything back up.
It ties into that we talk about almost like swinging like a block of wood. Everything's two together. And, we like to think about the downswings, you're shifting gears, and if anybody's driven a standard shift, you have to shift through the gears, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. You don't just want to slam it into fifth. Part of the thing that makes a swing effortless is the sequence and the timing, and what moves first and how early it moves, and then what comes second in the chain. And in the end, what you're really doing is basically cracking a whip, right? This is the end of the whip. And you're trying to move the segments of the body in a way that allows this last end of the whip to fly through there at maximum speed. And if you move things in the right order at the right time, you get that effortless speed.
If you've ever been to a tour event, like you're used to seeing these great players on TV, and the camera kind of smooths that sequence out, and it looks like they're not trying hard at all. And if you ever stand next to them, either at a tour event, or you kind of in the ropes, they hit one wayward, they're efforting a lot.
Yeah, there's effort there, but they get something for that effort.
But it's that sequence that you just spoke about that makes it all look effortless and even feel effortless. So what we had him do was, okay, forget what your upper body's doing for a second. Forget what the arms are doing, forget all that, and just put your mind in your pelvis. And there's a backswing turn, and then there's a downswing turn. He goes, yeah, that's what I do. Okay, just stick with that. When you get to the end of your backswing turn, which is, you've heard Shaun talk about this before, the belt buckle kind of points to the big toe, change directions. And the first time he did that, he changed directions at about right here, because this was done and he had no upper body movement to get to the top of the swing, no separation. We want separation to happen in the backswing, not the downswing.
You've got your shoulders here, right? And your hips. And I'm going to turn my shoulders to the top. Shoulders are, let's say 90, hips are 45. There's a 45-degree difference there. Well, as that's finishing, your hips are going to reach their maximum amount before the top of the backswing. They're going to start making a stretch here away from the upper body before the club even changes direction. I think
well before the club in a lot of cases.
And to me, that's the piece that's missing when you see a good amateur. You think, oh, wow, this guy could play on the tour, and a tour level swing.
Right.
That's the difference. We were just looking at a swing on gears that we just got yesterday. It's a really good swing from a tour player that y'all would know if we told you who it was. And he had a very dynamic move, and he maxed his hip turn out at about 50 right here, 3/4. By the time the club changed direction, he was already back at 40. So he had
10 degrees.
That's a quarter basically of how much he was going to turn. He already had 10 degrees of hip turn in there before the club even changed direction. And that's that middle stretch to the swing that really separates the good players from the great players.
And it's what should dictate really how long your swing is, right? Is that dynamic change of direction. So if I'm just thinking, as soon as my belt buckle is getting near my big toe, from my perspective, I'm going to start to change direction another way. That's going to affect how long of a backswing I can make. So if I go here and then back the other way, my arms are going to start to respond to that. I won't go here, camp out, and then everything go forward. So just that thought alone, he did it twice. He did the first time real short, and okay, let the arm swing a little bit. And then he did it again. He goes, but I'm not going to hit anywhere. And he looked up at the screen, and it was 4 yards longer than what he had just been trying to hit with the effort. So that was the buy-in right off the bat.
Yeah, and it's funny, we just put out a program called Distance Drills, and one of them is this kind of elephant's trunk feel with the lead arm. So what we did in that video, you put your trail hand behind your back, you just start rocking your feet back and forth, and eventually you rock and move enough to that arm will sling up there, right? The elephant's trunk. And as I go back the other way, the arm kind of goes into the chest a little bit as I'm unwinding, and I get that dynamic stretch in the middle of the swing. So if you haven't done that before, that's a great way to feel
Absolutely. So we said combination of movements at the start.
Combination.
Student athletes.
Combination of movements at the start. The second part of that combination is what the arms do in response to that. Because a lot of us who have gone, and then everything fires like a rubber band have never been able to do this second part of the combination.
There's a little secret in there about it. You have to keep some space between your lead arm and your trunk as you go back to do it correctly, right? So as I'm starting to go back, my hips reach their maximum turn somewhere in here. They start to change direction, which causes the torso to stop its turning, and it starts to change direction. Well, there's a point there when the torso stops but the arm is still moving. It just kind of floats into your chest, and as you unwind, it kind of comes down the chest. So it keeps the lead arm inward a little bit. As you start to unwind the lower body and that lazy Susan feel, you can put the club in a really like professional looking spot at waist high with the hands.
Right. And it's kind of like, you can even add this to your mindset with part of the sequence. It's kind of the last thing that moves in the sequence as the hips have already started to change direction. If you do that, you'll see yourself ideally at mid downswing, kind of around lead arm parallel, with your pelvis square to your target line and your hands still kind of back in here, because the shoulders should still be pretty much the same distance closed as they were going into the top of the swing.
And that's that lazy Susan thing. And it's really important. You know, you don't want to be firing the torso on top of the hips. The pelvis just carries the torso around. And if you do that while this lead arm is kind of floating inward, man, you can put this club dead on the money right here.
And that's what feels effortless.
Yeah, that's the last point before this whip cracks.
Yep.
And, you know, I've said it before that the more I play golf and you watch really good players and you're around good players, I feel like that's the best way to play. If you're trying to guide this club and do something to it down here, you might have good days, but you're going to have some really erratic days. The best way to play is use the sequence and timing and just get yourself positioned and really so you can throw this club, right? You're not trying to guide it at all. You're just letting the whip crack. If you've got a decent grip and a line correctly, you can hit some great shots without having to steer it. I think the steering is the hard part.
Yeah, and a good drill to do for this is just get your pelvis square to your target line. Okay? Turn your upper body, roughly 45 degrees to your pelvis, and put your arms back here. And I'm trying to keep my pelvis square. This is where you should be at mid downswing.
Yep.
Okay, now if you can do that, just rotate your pelvis from there, and you're going to feel like the rubber band stretching and snapping down here rather than out of the top. And it's a great awareness. Some of you have never put your bodies in that position relative to where your arms are. Do that, and you're going to get a big sense for how to create these effortless combination in your own golf swing.